tutorial video. Today's one I'm going to show you how to create a card something similar to this plus a different variation on this as well. So it's kind of like a Nuvo drop resist using the clear crystal Nuvo drops, which is called Morning Dew, and this tutorial is going to be in conjunction with Tonic Craft Kit number 66, which is the Sassy shell bag. Creates this gorgeous seashell shaped little bag. You get everything you need to be able to create this bag in these gorgeous colours in this kit, but you're also getting a random selection of 2 different packs of Nuvo ink pads, plus you're getting the clear crystal drops in here. You're also getting a spool of ribbon, a sparkle spray in this gold cream colour, and also a Nuvo Smooth Precision pen as well. And the colour scheme for the kit is like these beautiful purples and turquoises and cream colours. Those are all the cardstocks that you would be getting in the kit. And if you want a more in-depth look at all of the dies and everything that are part of the kit, then check out my unboxing video that went up yesterday. But within that kit there are actually 2 options of the different ink pads that you might be getting. You might get the Tropical Fruits, which is the set that I got, or you might be getting the Dream in Colour set of ink pads. So this card would work equally well with both of the different colour variations, so it doesn't matter which one you get if you wanted to recreate some kind of card like this. But basically, this tutorial is just kind of like another building step on the last one that I did for last month's kit 65. I think it was last month anyway, the tutorial that I did for that of how to make your own stencils from the dies in the kit's die set. This time I've still made some stencils with the dies, but we're taking this a bit further and adding in an actual technique with this sort of stencil die in particular, using some of those gorgeous Morning Dew drops in there, and then we're also using this sort of mermaid pattern to do a bit of ink blending as well. So this is kind of combining a couple of different things I've already shown in tutorials, sort of bringing them together. So hopefully this might be a nice idea for you, or if you don't have this month's craft kit, this should hopefully just give you maybe a little bit of insight of how you might want to create some kind of like wacky mixed media sort of background like this if you've never tried it before. Maybe you've got some little ink pads and some dies you could turn into stencils, or just stencils themselves, and you know, little stamps and things that you want to use to create some kind of little bit more abstract sort of looking card. So hopefully this will be useful to you in whatever application you sort of take this on. But I'm going to show you first how to kind of create the background in here, and then we're going to move on to this kind of resist technique. And because I would have to wait for this to dry, I have actually prepared the resist technique but just onto a white piece of card. So this is technically going to show you 2 different variations on this. On this one I've actually trapped some of this inking underneath the clear Nuvo drops, and then I've inked round it to make it stand out. But on this one we're protecting the white card that's underneath, so we're going to be able to really see that white pattern that we've protected with those Nuvo drops as we work with this one. So first of all, I'm going to kind of show you how I created this initial sort of background here using the Tropical Fruits ink pads that I got in my kit. So I got Rubber Duck, Panama Rose and Lime Burst. So we've got a beautiful selection of colours, and basically if you're doing some kind of mixed media background like this, just start. It doesn't really matter what you start with. If you just sort of break up the blank white page and just start, you know, you can just sort of build on it from there, and I feel like you get better results that way rather than trying to plan out what you're going to do. Obviously in this case I'm kind of trying to replicate what I've already done, but if you're just starting from a blank page, it's quite nice just to get some colour on there however you want to, and I'll show you a different kind of application of colour onto this one when we move on to that. But to begin with, I think it's nice to sort of bring in a lot of colour, so I'm going to go in with the Lime Burst colour first, and I'm just going to add some direct to paper kind of swipes of that green onto there. I am using my old ink pad just because I might as well use up all of the ink that's left into it, so you might get a much bolder kind of stripe of colour onto this initially if you're using a brand new ink pad, but because I already have my old ones I thought I might as well just use them up, and then I can move on to my gorgeous new ink pads. Then I think I'm going to go on to the Panama Rose and fill in these in between colours, or in between stripes, and you can go as deep or as light with the colour as you want. It might be better to go slightly on the lighter side if we're going to do the resist over the top, because then we'll be able to deepen up the ink blending over the top to make this pop out. But you can kind of do whatever you want to, really. So we've got some initial colour on there. Now, I've already shown you in a previous tutorial how to create your own stencil. So basically all you're doing is just getting a piece of cardstock, cutting your stencil into it, or cutting your die into it, whichever patterned panel sort of die you want to use, and then you've got your stencil there ready. I reckon with this one, actually, you could recess it back in and cut it again if you wanted to make your little stenciled panel a bit bigger. You technically, yeah, you could slot it, if you can see there, it slots back in perfectly, and then you could die cut it again to make it a little bit bigger. If you didn't want to risk getting this kind of curved shape in it, you could easily replicate that and just cut it a couple more times in different directions to sort of make that a larger panel of pattern as well. You can definitely do that. So to bring in my ink blended colour, I've got 3 small little Nuvo blending brushes that I'm going to be using. And first of all, I'm going to start with some yellow because we haven't used the yellow yet. So I'm just going to load up my brush with some yellow and just bring it into different areas of the card. And you can go heavier handed, lighter handed, whatever you want to do. With yellow, it's quite nice to just go heavy handed anyway, because it's such a light colour. You're not really going to overpower anything by adding yellow kind of designs onto there. And basically all you're going to do, just completely random, don't think about it too much, just randomly add the stencil, place it down, add some colour over the top. Doesn't matter if whatever's underneath is too dark and you can hardly see it. We're literally just building up some layers onto here, really, just to give us a little bit of extra pattern and interest in the initial background. So we've gone in with a few bits of yellow. Then we can come in with some pink as well, just to bring in some deeper, sort of darker areas of pattern. And don't think you have to have finished here. If you get to the end of your card and you feel like maybe you've lost a lot of this stenciling and you want to bring some back, or you've covered up some of it and it doesn't quite balance across the card and you want to add a bit more, you can definitely come back in and add more at a later date as well. You don't have to have decided exactly every single bit that you want on it now. You can definitely come back and build on it, which is the lovely thing about a mixed media kind of a background. So we got to that stage. Then at this point was when I did my stenciling onto here. So basically for this stencil, I actually cut the whole seashell patterned panel that's supposed to decorate the seashell, and then I just took little bits of washi tape and masked off those 2 areas, so I'm just focusing on that one strip of the design. You could definitely do pick a different strip, do multiple strips, but I just thought that one was quite a nice one with the scallop across the top and across the bottom, a nice even kind of design. And basically all I did with this, placed it on here like so, got some of my Morning Dew drops and my silicone spatula from Nuvo. And how I like to do this is I squeeze some onto the end of my spatula and then I spread it through like that to get it onto my project. That's how I like to apply my Nuvo drops. So at that point was when I added that. And then after those Nuvo drops had dried, I went back over with the same colours, but adding them in like opposite areas. So here there was more pink underneath the Nuvo drops, so I added a load of green around it to ink blend it, and you can see it, the pattern then pops out a little bit more. Over here there was pink underneath and I went with pink against it, and you can see it doesn't pop out quite so much. So if there's green underneath it, go with the pink or the yellow next to it to make that pattern really pop out. And once I was happy with those kind of areas, I then came back in with the seashell, or the starfish stamp from the stamp set on a little acrylic block, and then literally coming back in with some yellow and just stamping a few of those all over the background wherever I felt like I wanted to add some little starfish on there. So I know this isn't actually 100% recreating the card to show you, because I'd have had to wait ages for the Nuvo drops to dry. I just kind of wanted to show you the basic sort of technique of how you build up the layers and then like how you tend to embellish it afterwards and everything as well. So that is kind of how this card comes together. And then once you're happy with all of this, these little designs here are actually from the stamp set as well. And to get these, so you don't have to take the whole stamp off, put it on a stamping platform and, you know, stamp the entire design, what I did was I took a scrap of cardstock that was big enough to cover both these areas, because those are actually these pieces here. They're cut from these two sections of this shell design. And all I did was take the backing off of the stamp, peeled that off, added some ink across here, and then just pressed the scrap of card into that area and pulled it off again, and did that 3 times so I could have 5 of those little petal pieces. So really, really simple to kind of finish that card off. But I wanted to show you how this technique works with the Nuvo Drop Resist. So we'll work on this one to show how you actually ink round and make the patterns pop and everything. But so imagine this background had this done to it and we inked over the top of it. But also I'm kind of showing you this separately because it will give you a different idea of how to kind of do this as well. This is quite busy. You know, with the pattern trapped underneath and then more patterns around the edge of it, whereas this one is going to be just the white underneath from the actual cardstock itself, and then we'll have all of the colour around the edge. So for something a little bit different of how to apply ink directly to the paper, instead of just going straight, you can actually apply it with an actual direction in mind. So here I've got one of these that I've put on here going across the card on this corner. So I'm actually going to just use the corner of that ink pad and press it going across there. Now it's not going to get into all of those details, but we can come back later with the ink blending brush and add some more onto that. And I feel like the yellow would be quite nice to sort of mimic across all of the ones that I have put onto here. So I'm going to do yellow all over all of those ones there. And then I think bring the green along the bottom of those. So just swipe some green in there as well. Just to add the colour where we want it. We're kind of blocking the colour in really. In a really mixed media kind of fashion, you know, not really caring where things are going. You're just getting that colour onto the cardstock. And then a bit of the Panama rose as well. We can have that coming down this central section. And just build up that colour, add a bit more over here maybe, and another little bit in this white area as well. So we've now got our initial blocks of colour onto there, and then we can come back in with our brushes and get right up to that detail if we want to. You don't have to though. You could have left it how it was before. You could mix the colours. You could go in with the detail in the yellow on that green side, and then we can come back with the green on the other side, or even the pink on the other side to pick out that detail. We can go in with some yellow around that dot there, around these dots over here perhaps, going in with the yellow. Let's do a bit of yellow around this dot as well. Then we can bring in some green, and we can go right up against here with the green, around those dots with the green. Just adding the colour wherever we feel like we want to. And then also bring in some of the pink as well. Maybe boldening this bit here, bringing in some pink to really make that bit of the pattern pop out. Maybe some over here to make this bit pop out. You really can do whatever you want to for these kind of projects. And you don't have to do ink blending as well. You can do this with the sparkle spray. You could have just sprayed the sparkle spray over the top if you wanted to. You could do it with any coloured ink sprays that you have, your mica mists that you have, all sorts of different things that you can use on this to create different effects, to add your colour onto there. You don't have to just use ink pads. I'm just trying to show you some ways of using all of the bits that are in the kit to create something a little bit different that you might not have done before. But really, really easy kind of technique that you can't really go wrong with, just adding all of this colour. And then once you've got a decent amount of colour onto there, you can take a bit of kitchen roll and wipe over the top, and you're going to get that resist technique, kind of like an embossed resist, but we've just used the Nuvo drops to create it. So you can you don't need a heat tool, and you're using up a different product that you might not have used up that much before. Maybe you have a lot of Nuvo drops and you want some different kind of way of using them. It doesn't have to be the clear Nuvo drop, that's just the one that's from this kit. You can put any different Nuvo drop through a homemade stencil. You could do it through an actual stencil as well, but I would say you're probably going to want to wash it off straight away so it doesn't dry into all of the little details. And I haven't actually tried it myself, but I would usually go for a homemade stencil just in case it ends up messing something up. But now we've got to this stage, we can also add some of the stenciling in as well. So we can do everything in a completely different order to what we did it on the previous card. It really doesn't matter which order you do these kind of cards in. It doesn't really matter at all. You can get away with working completely back to front if you want to. And if you wanted, you could also bring in some more opaque kind of products like Nuvo mousses and things as well to add in some of this pattern over the top. If you feel like things have gotten too muddy or you know, the colours are too strong and your ink blending's not showing up over the top of it, you can just bring in something that's slightly more opaque like a mousse, because the mousses have that mica to them and it tends to sort of obliterate whatever's underneath. So that would work really nicely to bring in pattern if you've gone too heavy with your colours. So we can just bring this anywhere across here that we feel like it needs it. Maybe coming back in with some of the yellows and adding a bit more as well. Just randomly in different areas. And it just gives a completely different effect. Because of that, the way we have just trapped the white cardstock underneath, you've got really stark effects here. And you can see I didn't do a brilliant job of actually stenciling. It's gone a bit blobby here, but it still looks like a cool abstract kind of design. And the way I added in actual Nuvo drops as well, then we've got little circles appearing in here too, which is quite nice. So you've got all sorts of different elements that can appear within your patterns. And you can also, on a previous card that I showed you in yesterday's up close video, I did this like swipe of the clear Nuvo drops in the background. You could do that and then ink blend over the top of it and it would give a completely different result. You could even, if you wanted to, do a double resist. You could have done this kind of resist, done all of this inking over the top, and then you could actually add more in a different area. Maybe you are just going to take your silicone spatula, get some more of the drops on there, do a big swipe across there, and then leave that to dry and then come back the next day and ink blend over the top of it to make that sort of swoosh be protected of whatever's underneath, and then you're adding more colour on the top as well. So there's so many different ways that you can kind of create different effects using this kind of resist technique, and you can come back in at any stage and add more colour to wherever you feel like it needs it. Maybe things look a little bit too regimented and you want to break them up a little bit more. Maybe this pink colour's looking a little bit patchy. If you just twist with the corner, you'll get some really deep dark colours in there to add a different kind of a look. So we can just do that. Then we come back in with our kitchen roll again, wipe off any of the Nuvo drops so that the ink is sort of resisting them again. And then you've got a completely different looking background to that first one that we did, and completely different to the finished card that I had done before as well. This one's very bright. I've pressed a lot harder by putting the ink on there, and there's a lot more yellow on this one, so it's made it really nice and bright. But you can do all sorts of different effects with this kind of technique, and we haven't even added any stamping onto this one. We can definitely come back in and add some more stamping onto this as well to give some different designs in there. It doesn't have to just be stamping with a little design, it can be stamping with text as well. The handbag version that I did this was actually an embossed resist rather than Nuvo drop resist. You can see it gives a similar kind of effect, and then I ink blended over the top of it, and I also stamped with one of the word stamps. It's not very clear, there's just like hints of texture in there, but I did do a little bit of stamping with one of the word stamps, and then I also sprayed over this one with the gorgeous cream gold sparkle spray as well to give it a pearly finish. And this one I had also sprayed with the sparkle spray too to give that sparkly kind of effect. But you don't have to spray with your sparkle spray. you can shake it up to get all of that gorgeous sparkle into solution, and instead of just spraying all over, you can just do some gorgeous splatters as well, which will really add to the background of your card. So we can just add some lovely splatters onto here, just to add some extra interest into the background and give a different kind of effect. Because the Nuvo hybrid ink pads are that hybrid kind of technology, they aren't water reactive, so you can't do like the bleaching technique as if, you know, if this was Distress inks, you could splat it with water and then pick off some of the colour. But with the Nuvo ink pads you can't do that because they are, they've got that like permanentness built into them. So another way of getting that similar kind of effect is to do splattering with something again that's slightly more opaque, and that sparkle spray has so much sparkle in it. When you splatter it on, it gives that much more opaque kind of effect, whereas if you spray it as a mist, you get just that beautiful sparkle showing over the top of everything. So really subtle sparkle in there. And then you can just finish this off however you want to, really. And so I've kind of shown you this tutorial in multiple different steps. So because I'm doing that, I might as well just show you exactly how to apply your Nuvo drops directly to this background as well. So I'll try and put the bits in the similar positions that I did originally, because I kind of placed them strategically so that the stencil wasn't interfering with the next bit that I wanted to stencil onto there. So basically, when I want to stencil with a Nuvo drop, I take my bottle, I take my spatula. These ones are fantastic, the Nuvo media spatulas. Squirt some onto the end here, and then just pick it up and swipe it across where your stencil is. Now the more times you go backwards and forwards over it, the more it's likely to bleed out underneath. And also, if you have used this, like when I did this one, I had just used it to do the previous one, so that's why there was more blobby effect, because there was still wet Nuvo drops that had probably squidged underneath it as well from the 3 applications that I'd just done on the previous project. But even though this stencil is just made out of cardstock, it's still really durable, and if you let this dry on there, it's then going to be more durable the next time you want to use it, because Nuvo drops will dry really hard and they'll strengthen the stencil for you. So now we can go on this curved section here, and then finally you can see I wasn't interfering with the other one, so now we can add a little bit extra on here, and again I'm placing the stencil so it's not interfering with either of those 2 other bits that I've just stenciled onto there. And we'll just add a little bit more onto our spatula and then spread that onto there. So that is how you add it straight onto the background. Then you would wait for that to dry, ink blend over the top, add your stamping, any extra stenciling you want to do, a spritz of the sparkle spray, and then you've got a beautiful background like this. And then I was really going for that abstract kind of look for this one, so that's why I've done the funny sort of like petal shapes or seaweed pod kind of shapes on there, and then I've done the wishing you oceans of joy as the sentiment. But yeah, that's how you do the sort of stenciled portion with your Nuvo drops for the resist. And then you can also come back in just with the drops from the bottle to add your extra patterns as well. So, you know, just add a few drops on there. You can go freehand and do like a wiggly design on there as well. It doesn't have to just be drops. You can do whatever you want to add that resist kind of element to your project as well. So I thought I would definitely wanted to actually show you that in the video, and also might as well show you how you get that swoosh kind of technique or application of the Nuvo drops across the card that I did on the one with the seashells on it. So literally again, you're just loading up your spatula and then just going like this across your project. You could do it as many times as you want, you could do it as few times as you want, you can build up as much of the drops as you want as well. If you really wanted like a prominent you know, like ridge of the wave or something, if this was going to be a sea themed card and you wanted it to be more of like a wave accent, you can definitely build up the thickness of the wave and get that lovely texture to stay in there as well. So you can do all of those kind of techniques, just spreading it on to the background. And at this point, I've tried to stick to things that are in the kit, but at that point you could definitely add in some of your shimmer powders, and then they would burst out in there because that's a wet medium. Or you could even bring in some of this and splatter it onto there, and it would sort of sink into the drops as they're drying as well for a completely different look. The previous card I did this after the drops had already dried, but you can do it before they've dried as well, and you'll get a different effect because they sort of diffuse into the wet drops that are on there. You can see already how the drops look different from straight onto the card to onto those Nuvo drops as well. So you can do those kind of effects. And then I did also want to show you, let me just clean up and I'll come back. I did also want to show you how you could accent your cards with the Nuvo Smooth Precision Glue Pen that we're getting in the kit. We don't get any glitter in the kit, so I've just picked out this Ivory Sands one from my stash because I thought it would go nicely with the colours. However, I was going to show it on this background, but I've just put those wet Nuvo drops on there, so I'm just going to show it to you on a piece of white cardstock. But the way this pen kind of works, it's got just like a ballpoint tip to it, and then the glue kind of just comes out as it is. You just press the tip down, kind of like a gel pen, and you just roll it along like a roller ball, and you can squeeze to get more or less glue out of there as well, and you can press the roller ball down to get more to sort of squidge out as well. I just thought I'd do some kind of like frame idea, scratchy kind of scribbly frame. You can be a bit more precise as well. If you want to, you know, do a little bit of foiling or something, you can just do dots on there. And you can use gilding flakes with this as well. It doesn't have to just be glitter. But if you wanted to use gilding flakes with this, you would have to leave this to dry. And when the basically when the glue dries, it doesn't actually dry, you know, completely. It stays tacky so that you can put something on top of it. So if you were going to do gilding flakes or foil, you would want this to be dry, but if you're using glitter, you can just do it straight away, so you don't have to wait around for the glue to go tacky before you put glitter on. But if you wanted to, you could, but you don't have to actually wait. So what we can do is we can get our glitter and we can sprinkle this over the top, and we'll get a beautiful sparkly frame just by scribbling on with that Nuvo Precision Glue Pen. So it's a really good pen to have in your stash for all sorts of different applications. You can also just use it for adhering your fine die cuts as well, but I love it for things like this, where you want to just add some kind of detail with glitter, and you can be more precise as well. So we could do, what should we write? Or should we just do a heart actually? We'll draw a heart on here. And you can actually, you could personalise something if you wanted to. Do someone's name. If you've got really good handwriting, you could do someone's name on the front of their card as well. But you can just do gorgeous little different bits and pieces just using that glue pen as a place to sort of add your glitter onto, or leave it to dry. It'll go tacky and you can use it for your foiling and your gilding flakes as well. But I wanted to show you that too because I hadn't shown it properly in the craft kit yesterday, so I thought I'll throw it into the tutorial for you as well. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial video showing you a Nuvo drop resist kind of technique in a couple of different variations. The original card that I created was using it more to protect what was underneath, and then you ink blend over the top. But if you don't want to do it that way, you can just protect the white cardstock underneath with your clear Nuvo drops and add all of your colouring on top of it. And I've also showed you the application of adding the drops through your homemade stencil, how to do little drops and wiggles and things on there as well. And as a bonus, I also showed you how to use the Nuvo Smooth Precision Glue Pen as well, just to add some glitter onto a card as a quick, simple kind of technique that you can do. So really hope you enjoyed this tutorial video, which was in conjunction with Tonic Craft Kit number 66, which was the Sassy shell bag, which the unboxing video went up yesterday. So if you want to check out exactly what's in the kit and a few more of the cards and bag samples that I created as well, you can check out that video. And if you're interested in getting hold of Tonic Craft Kit number 66, there will be affiliate links in the description box below the video, and I'll try and link to as many of the products that I've used in this video as I can as well. So really hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!